Here's the situation. 1811. Your man in Oxford writes this paper, The Necessity of Atheism. And you have all these atheist revolutions going on. People rising up against the masters. But now they're writing papers about it like this, and they're trying to influence people with this ideology of atheism. I've got 3 questions for these new thinkers, for these highly intelligent ones. 3 questions. Number 1, is it possible that absolute truth exists in the universe? See, here's the thing, right? You've got absolute truth and relative truth. Relative truth, people coming up with their own truth. What's true for you? Maybe you think atheism's true. So there you go. That's your relative truth. You would be saying then, my relative truth is this. This is not from me, first of all. However, you'll be thinking that I'm following this and that I believe it's true, and that's just for me and my people, not for you, not for the atheist. There you are, right? Is it possible that absolute truth exists in the universe? Now, I would put it to you that the rational answer to that question is yes, it's possible. Because if you say no, that means you know everything in the universe. And you know that this absolute truth doesn't exist. What I mean by absolute truth, something that's true for everybody. Something that's morally true for everybody. Everybody should be following it. And you understand, of course, that's what we're talking about. When we're talking about this, the people that are following it, that are talking about it, that are preaching it to other people. Is it possible? The rational answer is yes, it's possible absolute truth exists in the universe. I'm talking to the person who's already gone to the extent of believing that atheism is a necessity, like this man in 1811. Second question, if it's possible, and that's the humble answer, yes, it's possible. If it's possible, is it possible that it's a being? Well, obviously, if the answer to that question is it's possible that it's a being, it wouldn't be a human being now, would it? If you look at the Civil War and the amount of people that have been killed, even in the revolutions and all this, the amount of stuff that's going on. Humans, that's relative truth. That's why they're killing each other. What's true for me, I'm going to kill you for the thing that you believe. Whether it's about money or whatever. Land, religion, maybe. Is it possible that absolute truth exists as a being? I'm not talking about people on other planets. I'm talking about, is it true that there's a being that's absolutely true? Now, it would be some being, you have to admit that it would be some kind of amazing being if it itself was absolutely true. That it was teaching and believing and everything that was true. And of course, the answer is yes to that. The rational answer is yes, it's possible. Because remember, I'm saying, is it possible? Right? Third question. If an absolutely true being exists, is it allowed to write a book? Right? You hear that? Is it allowed to write a book? Is it allowed? See now, if it's absolutely true, it's going to have much more integrity and moral power than a human being. So how would we answer that question? No. How would we say no? We do not allow this we relatively true beings would not allow this absolutely true being to write a book. Why is it not allowed to write a book? Well, look, here's the thing. Have you ever played with a baby? Most people have played with babies, and especially mothers, of course. And there comes a time, maybe in the first few weeks or the first month or two, when the baby laughs, right? And there's one thing that the mother does that makes it laugh. Some babies don't like the white eyes. I know a lot of babies that don't like my white eyes. They call me crazy. But then there's other babies that don't like being tickled. And they'll cry. And they'll get awful gurney when you tickle them. But then there's some babies that like being tickled, and that's when they laugh. And then there's other babies that like the white eyes, and that's when they laugh. But anyway, the next thing that happens now is Daddy comes home, and Mummy says, Mary, do you see this? What do you see, look? And she tickles the baby, and the baby and then Daddy goes, oh, that's great, and he's laughing, he's doing the white eyes. He's doing the white eyes because the white eyes make the baby laugh. He's not tickling the baby. Tickling the baby might make it cry. Doing the white eyes, doing what Mummy showed him. So here you see the higher being that can communicate in a more complex way, using the lower communicative form to have an intense relationship with the lower communicator. So similar to this here. We invented writing, of course we did. They had the Egyptians, and they've stopped really using that properly in any society. But then we had the Greek and the Hebrew, and before that, in between, was the cuneiform script. And since we were writing, you notice that when you read in here, and you go back to around about the time of 1200, when Moses was writing this down, if you look up the Nuzi tablets and the Ebla tablets, you'll see that there's two massive libraries of these cuneiform tablets that have been found like 50 or 100 years either side of when Moses started writing this. Moses, of course, was literate, came from the house of Pharaoh, as we know. And when he's writing it down, he's telling us that before the writing was used, God was talking audibly to men that were chosen specifically because of their very strong faith and ability to communicate that to the people. That would be a certain kind of man that does that. So the scripture, the writing, started about 1250 BC, ended about 69 AD or thereabouts. 1300 years of writing. Is God allowed to do that? Well, here, if God gives us the capacity to use writing, and at the time when it becomes an actual fact used widely by humanity for commerce, at that time, he says, here, I'll write you a wee book. Plenty of different authors, all different backgrounds, writing to you from different places. What do you see what I do? How can we say that this all-powerful being that might exist can't write a book? And if he might have written it, why would you not read it to find out? Now here's the thing. 1841, we have our friend who writes The Essence of Christianity, and he's trying to make out that man is even a more moral power than God. This is a fallacy, because man is creating wars with his truth all the time. And there's a name for that, propaganda, that they say is true, and people find out afterwards maybe it wasn't true, Here's a situation. We're phrasing these questions very philosophically, but what we're actually saying is, does God exist and can he write a book? And here's the thing. There's a lot of men of science in these atheist groups nowadays. And what is the scientific method, huh? You look at the evidence, you make your hypothesis, you look at the evidence, you do experiments, you gather all the results, you analyze them, you draw your conclusions, and then you might have a discussion. But hey, most of these people that are calling themselves atheists nowadays, hey, they haven't read the evidence, they haven't looked at it. Sure, here, look what it says here. 2 Timothy. It says, all scripture is God breathed and is useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness, so that the man of God may be thoroughly equipped for every good work. This is the evidence, hey. The people that are following it, the people that are actually doing it, they're telling you this is the evidence. Who do you want your guts cut open by? Somebody that never looked at the books? Or somebody that looked at the books? Or somebody looks at the books, huh? So, have a look at it. That would be my advice. Have a look at it. Read it from cover to cover before you say that you're an atheist. Or at least be honest enough to say, if you're an atheist, that you're making that decision purely based on emotion. It's not based on what the book says. That's the situation.